So this episode of Queen Sugar was very interesting. It seems like everyone is pretty much moving forward, although we do still see some ramifications here and there of the release of Nova Bordelon's book, Blessing in Blood. However, it seems like things are starting to progress and new drama is actually unfolding for a lot of the characters. So we are now seeing that Charlie is putting together her campaign, and she has the support of the family as well as friends. Prosper is one of those friends of the family who is also considered to be family at this point. He's one of the individuals that is assisting Charlie with her councilwoman campaign in St. Joe. And what I love about this episode is we get to see more of Prosper. We get to hear him talk more, get more dialogue, but also we see Prosper has a crush on I don't know if this is a friend of the past or a relative of a friend in the past, from St. Thomas. And it's just the cutest thing to see Prosper and Prosper flirt with her, as well as invite her to have a steak dinner. He was like, you come on over for some steak, and then she's like, well, I bring the wine. And I'm just like, listen, that sounds so good right about now. Y'all, look, I know they say third is the wheel, but whatever, I'm gonna be the third wheel at this point, because that sounds too good to pass up. So it was really good to see Prosper in good spirits. Also, we see Charlie, and she's basically, like I said, getting a lot of support from the family. They're setting up the campaign site, and we also see that Charlie is making an attempt to connect with the other side of St. Joe, because we have the Caucasian side of St. Joe, we have the black side of St. Joe, but then we have the Latinx side of St. Joe, which honestly throughout this entire time I didn't even know existed in St. Joe, because we don't see that side. Like, we see the white people, we see the black people, but up until we got Romero, I didn't even know they had other Latin American folks in St. Joe. So we definitely got to see that during this shindig that was being thrown, and Romero invited Charlie so that Charlie could speak with the pastor, who has a big influence on the people. And the pastor is like pretty much not really buying into Charlie and her campaign, because his thing is, which rightfully so, his thing is, well, up until this point, you never came to this side of the town. You didn't, address any of our issues. And what we start to see throughout this episode is that with the pastor, it's more of a having an issue with the fact that things tend to be black and white, but there's no one paying attention to the Latin individuals, the Latinx community, especially here in St. Joe. And he also is saying, like, for black and Latin people, like, we should be coming together, Black Americans rather, and Latin individuals, we should be coming together to work together, instead of allowing the system to pit us against one another, because the powers that be continue to get richer and wealthier and more powerful as they basically play us up against one another, which is completely understandable. No disagreement here, completely understandable. So I really like that we get to see Charlie and his side of things, the pastor's side of things, and Charlie take on this challenge, and recognize that this was a part of St. Joe that she was not necessarily in tune with. But in order for her to be for the people, she has to be if she's going to run for councilwoman, she has to be for everyone in her proximity, or that vicinity. So that is really good to see. And I also appreciate the fact that Charlie, she didn't take exact offense to it. She stayed open-minded and listened to what his concerns were. And I think that's important with any councilman or councilwoman, to pay attention to what the people want. So you could definitely see that displayed. Also, we see Micah is becoming more acquainted with Charlie's friend Romero. But then we also see that Charlie and Romero has now taken it a step further by being intimate with one another. So I think it's safe to assume at this point that Charlie and Romero is pretty much a couple. And Micah made it clear, as long as his mother is happy, he's happy. Not to mention, when Charlie was in her camp at her campaign site, someone threw a brick through the window. So that's pretty much an introduction of what there is to come. We already know this is not going to be an easy feat for Charlie, because there are individuals who want that highway built, who do not like her. They want her gone. She done made a lot of enemies, okay? Even if they have nothing to do with that highway, she has made a lot of enemies. So we don't know who threw that brick, what their intentions are. We just know that pretty much moving forward, she better watch her back. But what I do like about that scene is that Romero was there to embrace her, to protect her. I thought that was so good, because she's going to need it. She's going to need that strong foundation, that strong support, especially from a man. She's really, really honestly going to need that. And also, he's a protector. He's there to protect her too. So I just thought that was beautiful, that whole scene at her campaign site. And then in the end, we of course see Charlie making her announcement for councilwoman and saying no brick through the window is going to stop her from running for city council. And she basically states what she plans on doing, including stopping that highway. And she just kind of brings together the entire community, you know, saying that it's about all the people and not just a certain demographic that she identifies with. It's about all the people and protecting what they have. So I appreciated that. It looked like the pastor was in the audience. It looked like he appreciated it as well. With Micah throughout this episode, I don't know what is going on with Micah and Kiki, but we do see there's a little riffraff going on between Micah and Kiki, his girlfriend Kiki. I don't know, did I miss something? I'm not sure. Kiki might be, you know, kind of upset, because Micah, there's two sides of Micah. There's the Micah when he's with Kiki and around his mom. Then there's the Micah when he gets around his other friends. And that, I think maybe that's what Kiki is having a problem with, especially with Micah getting this tattoo. Like, it's kind of like he's becoming someone she doesn't know. So that whole situation is quite interesting to watch unfold. But other than that, it was pretty much a calm episode for Micah. Moving on to Nova. We have Nova still on this book tour, and she still has her former mentor, you know, tagging along with her like a leech. I immediately, when they opened up with this episode and showed Nova and that professor, I'm like, really? She's still with her? Even though I know she announced that she was going to be with her for this tour, I already knew once she announced that, it was like, yeah, you got some selfish motives. But basically throughout this episode, we see that the professor is giving off these jealous vibes, these envious vibes, as if she wished that she was in Nova's place, basically. That you could definitely tell there was envy there, great amount of envy there. But she pretty much, I would say, revealed that emotion when she and Nova was at this particular networking party, as I call it. And she comes up against another professor who basically invites Nova to write a portion of the book. And she inserts herself as someone with a little more tenure than Nova. She asserts herself and offers her own services to take Nova's place and write this portion of the book. And the professor is like, nah, you know, we're looking for someone a little more fresh. In other words, you're looking for someone younger, which I think is not a good thing either. You know, I think that definitely feeds into making women feel like when they reach a certain age, they're no longer valuable. I did not like that at all. But nonetheless, I did not like the professor or Nova's mentor response to it all either, trying to insert herself in a position that was offered to Nova. You know, even though she may not have liked how this other lady came to her in regards to this writing of this book and the response that she received, it still was not fair of her to speak on Nova's behalf and try to insert herself in an opportunity that was never directed to her in the first place. So eventually, you know, Nova ends up overhearing this. She starts to see the professor for who she truly is. She confronts her, and yes, the professor lets it be known she is pretty envious. She feels like she has more experience than Nova and that she made Nova who she is. And Nova's like, listen, I respect you. I appreciate all that you've done, but I made my own way. And that is where we get to see the professor finally take her leeching behind out the door and leave Nova alone. It was like, it's about time. It's about time. I had to, you know, really, I celebrated that moment because it's about time. So anyway, even though it probably felt like a load off to release the professor for Nova, it still left Nova alone, and you can definitely see she was feeling that, like she's missing her family. And to be honest, I think she only really liked the professor around because it's filling that void that has been left in her life since she released this book and lost pretty much all her damn immediate family. But you can definitely see that when Nova calls Charlie, and she's like really emotional about the phone call because she wants to celebrate her sister being running rather for councilwoman, but at the same time she knows Charlie is not going to answer the phone, and Charlie more than likely will not call her back. And it's just like a lonely period for Nova, who is celebrating the success of her book, but at the same time going through an emotional effects of being you know, not with her family. So moving on, we have Violet and Hollywood. Now, I don't know about you guys, I don't want to know anything about Violet and Hollywood's love life, but I do love them, but you know, and they're married. They're doing what they're supposed to do. But unfortunately, you know, what we learned in this episode is that due to the bringing up of Jimmy Dale and Jimmy Dale's return back into town and all that trauma that Aunt Vi had to relive, we learn in this episode that emotionally and physically, Violet is going through something where she is not wanting to express her intimacy with Hollywood physically, right? It's the best way I could put it. Keep it PG. But anyway, she's not really wanting to, you know, perform any certain physical actions with Hollywood. And she finally, what I love most is that she finally lets him know, because it just seems like Hollywood, even though all of this just happened, you would think Hollywood would connect the dots already. He didn't understand if it was him or what the situation was as to why she did not want to be intimate with him. But I really love that she finally told him it had to do with the fact that Jimmy Dale had returned to town and all these emotions that got rattled up inside of her. But the downside to it all is that she did express to Hollywood that she would need some space. Ouch. I have to admit, I felt that. In that moment when she said that, I felt that. I took that to heart. But Hollywood, even though you can clearly see that he was hurt by that, you can also tell that, you know, he understands he can't control that, and he can't force her to do anything she doesn't want to do. And he said exactly what I was thinking in that situation: for better or for worse, for sickness and in health. Meaning, as I'm interpreting it, no matter what, this is clearly a sickness at the moment. No matter, and this is possibly their worst times as a married couple or as a couple in general. No matter what, though, he took those vows with her. He understands, and he's gonna fall back and give her what she needs right now. So you gotta give it up for Hollywood. Listen, I know I do this every episode, but I ain't playing. Can we just give it up for Hollywood? Listen. Anyway, last but not least, we have Ralph Angel, Blue, and Darla. And basically Darla is like, okay, we got to get Blue someone to talk to. This is kind of a traumatic experience for a child to go through. We need to make sure he's going to be okay in regards to learning that you are not his biological father. So they end up hiring, I guess she's a psychologist or a therapist, and everything seems to be cool with Blue. That's the best way I could put it. Like, Blue seems like he's handling it just fine, although I do understand the parents' concern, and to be honest, I think they did the right thing. I would also like to point out, I love the fact that the psychologist or the therapist or whatever you call her, she was black. I do appreciate that. Black man, black woman, I'll take it, because I feel like with us and the unique things that we go through as a community here in this country, I truly believe we need each other as far as, when we look up and we're confiding in someone, as far as a therapist or a psychologist. It truly helps to have someone that understands the community and that understands what we are going through, even if they don't come from the same entire situation as we do. But the fact that it's always that commonness of being black in America. For the most part, we know we have some people that may not necessarily identify with that, that may be judged as that, but they might not want to identify with that. But anyway, long story short, you know, the therapist makes some suggestions for the family to continue to stay on track and to continue to assist Blue through this situation. And it just seems like throughout the episode, we see that going really well. It looks like at first Darla and Ralph Angel had their concerns, but you can clearly see that Blue is very happy. He's very healthy. Not to mention he's very intelligent, and they're just coming along very well. As a family that's not necessarily, you know, together, and he's not necessarily with Darla, but they're doing excellent at co-parenting and taking care of Blue in this issue. So this was a really good episode. I'm very excited to see what's going to happen next. I don't know about you all. The biggest thing I want to know and want to see is who in the heck is targeting Charlie. I think that's going to be one of the greatest things we're going to get out of the next upcoming episodes, is who exactly it is that has been targeting Charlie this entire time as she takes on the Highway, the Landry / Boudreaux. So that's it. See y'all next episode. Peace.